Hello, welcome back. This is fusion number 3 out of 4 of the Trifusion series of Gardevoir, Gengar, and Arcanine. Now, if you're wondering why exactly I picked those 3, go back to the first video. I'm not going to explain it here. Just do what I tell you. Okay, go away title card, no one ever loved you. There is no love for you here. Just like me. Alright. Last one in the Core 3 series. This has to be Gardevoir and Gengar. And actually, I've been looking forward to this one because I know for a fact that I'm going to put this sweet smile of Gengar's on this Gardevoir's body. Basically. It's not going to be like last time. Last time I mentioned this, I kind of strayed a little bit too far with her design. But as I said, a lot of that lies in the fault of her being drawn too humanoid in certain quote-unquote fan drawings that I'm sure most of you have seen many times. Many times. Far too many. You probably should be blind by now, all things considered. So, let's get right into it here. First things first, same thing that we did in the first few videos. You need to identify basic shapes, generally have a good concept of what we want to do. Which means kind of looking and staring at the drawing as I'm doing right now, just kind of visualizing and thinking about what exactly it is. Because I actually have given no thought to this up until this point, because I specifically wanted to demonstrate this. Alright, first things first, kind of my basic idea here. We've kind of already gone over how each one of these character designs has its own sort of core shapes. Like Gengar has this very triangular shape, but otherwise he's very angry, grapey, like that. Let's see. Just looking at it, already I can kind of get an idea of, I can use his ear, along with her sort of ear that is not an ear. I have no idea what these are. It is best not to question it, I'm sure. I can drop down sort of this, and have a line there. And have it follow through with the same thing with there. So we can kind of carry over this shape into this as well. Okay, enough talking, more demonstrating. Alright, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to use Gengar as sort of a base. I'm not going to draw over this one. This time I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive. I'm probably going to draw this in parts. So this is going to be a little bit different than what you guys are used to in regards to watching these videos. So, first things first, I'm going to draw some basic shapes. Let's see. This line drops down here and goes across the top of her eye. So let's try to carry that over. That might be a little bit difficult because there's no hair here. Well, shape first, then I'll worry about that later. Actually, let's draw it at sort of more of a profile. Let's carry those eyes across. And they almost have the exact same sort of eye shape. Actually, they kind of do. Where it's just this exact same drop-down effect. Which, maybe that's the reason why people like Gengar so much. Because they're sexually attracted to Gengar and they don't realize it. What's that thing where there's like porn drawings of the big chunky guys? Bara? Is that what it is? Yeah, I think that's what it is. Bara drawings. Yeah, it's not gonna be that. we're not doing one of those today. But maybe that's what Gengar is. Maybe he's a Bara. I might be getting that one wrong though. I can't quite remember. Alright. Not gonna worry too much about pupils and everything like that just yet. We're just trying to focus on shapes. It's gonna be kind of hard to get her very curved head in here. One thing I can do is kind of fold this over so that it comes down like that and not be too overly aggressive with it otherwise. And I can tell that I'm going to have to rework this several times, so this is not going to be a final primary. But this will be a starting point. Let's try to bring those lines down too. So it will look something like that. And this, I guess I can carry one of those lines over to sort of insinuate sort of a mohawk thing going on here. Maybe that's the best way around it. And then we'll have to bring in those other two. Since this is a fusion, then maybe we don't need to draw that third one. But we can't have it as an option. So we'll kind of get something that's sort of like this. The main problem is going to be carrying over Gengar's completely orb shape, which is probably the biggest problem in this entire fusion. With the Arcanine one, I got around it by making it sort of this weird hunchback thing. I don't want to do that since she is, like, this is going to be the most difficult one in terms of combining body shapes because they are so completely polar opposite to one another. Gengar is just a big round ball, and Gardevoir is just this very slender, like she's just a green bean flying in the wind. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's something like that. So what we're going to have to do here is try to think of a way around that problem, or at least to utilize it. Either way, it looks like we're going to have to try to avoid having too much of a neck. So one thing, let's see, can I use that some way? I could use the little furls of her dress that's not a dress. Isn't it weird? Like, think of all the things, like, Sylveon's another example where it has a little scarf, or, what's that stupid frog everyone likes? The thing that has the tongue scarf. All of it's meat. 100% of it. They're not wearing clothing. It's meat. They're wearing meat. Isn't that gross? Anyways, I can sort of use that and sort of carry that over. Maybe that's a way. That way it won't look too bizarre that it has a neck that's not a neck. But it also won't look too ugly either. This one won't be as sexualized as the other one was, that's for sure. But I can make it pretty close if I do it just right. And let's carry it. Gardevoir doesn't have a mouth, so this is going to be slightly smaller. And in this case, I can carry over the teeth, unlike the whatever I called the damn Arcanine and Gengar one. So there's one way around it. And then bring that down. Yeah. Trying to make this slender is going to be the biggest issue. I can't get too much detail in because there's not really any detail here either. It does have off at some point. Let's just draw the basic shape and then worry about it later. So it would be sort of like that. Pull down here somewhere, just nebulous sketchy lines just to give myself an idea. And I can furl that out to hide. I can actually hide quite a lot using her weird dress thing, so that it's almost like a trench coat in a way or something. That'd probably be the easiest way around this. Of course, her stupid heart thing that doesn't make any sense. That's supposed to be like part of her heart, I think, in one of the descriptions, which is really gross. Don't do that, Pokemon. That's fucking gross. Making it part of the heart, like and it comes from the back too. Like it has a guitar. It looks like someone stabbed a guitar pick through her. I always hated this thing. This is stupid. Like it does break apart the design. Imagine if it wasn't there, it would look kind of dumb. But I don't know, something about it just really bugs the snot out of me. Okay, so and I can tell this is not going to be the final. This definitely is not going to be the final. But this is going to give you a rough idea of how I'm planning this thing out. It's kind of cute, but right now it kind of just looks like a slimmed down Gengar in a dress. Which has its own appeal, I guess. But it's still not quite what we're after. Remember, intermediates of every element of design in theory. So like the fingers, for example, since Gardevoir has these weird plant sort of looking hands, Gengar has these little stabby fingers. Try to get something that's a little bit in between. Should be a little bit longer than that. Don't make the thumbs too pronounced because they're not quite that pronounced on her design either. So you get something that's a bit more like that. And his legs are not really that pronounced. We could, in theory, try to include little stubby legs, I guess, but it's not really that pertinent. So you get something that's sort of like that. So that's one way around that. Still a lot of problems, I feel, though. And I didn't carry over, Gengar's weird, Gardevoir's weird little hair dealy that goes all the way in the back, either. I can deal with it that way. I kind of like the direction the head's going. But I don't like the way that it's kind of coming across as Gengar in a dress right now. So one way around that, diminish a little bit of the Gengar look in the face. Although with Gengar, he's just a face on an angry grape, as I've said in the past. So that's going to be a problem too. So, and if you can't tell, art involves a lot of staring and thinking. Reason why I usually do this on stream, because the stream people are usually sitting there listening to music, or we're watching Star Trek or something, and they have something that they can do in the process. Yeah, maybe just carrying it down a little bit further was all I really needed. I think I want to shore up the smile a little bit. It does still need to be slightly sinister and playful, though. I do like that about Gengar's design, and I wanted to carry that over with her. So one thing that, you could always just add a little smile on her and be done with it, but we're trying to do a fusion, so we can't really do that either. And it does have off there, doesn't it? Yeah. This is kind of fine. Let me actually redraw this real fast as some basic shapes. Let's do the sort of the torso area first. So it looks sort of like that, with the arms coming down here. Thumbs, hands, same thing over here. Don't have to draw that too well. And then right here is kind of where the problem comes in. Don't want it to turn into a moo-moo or something. And it does need to be sort of long. Let's try to focus on her design here a little bit. Okay, so that's kind of where our problem is coming from. Right now, the issue is not so much that we haven't reached a unity of the two designs, it's that it doesn't look like its own thing. I would like it to get to the point where it actually looks like its own unique being, rather than just being one or the other inside of cosplay, right? And of course that needs to be a little bit smaller because it's a fusion. I could always... No, I can't get rid of the line exactly. But I do need to remember to bring that down. So yeah, maybe one thing I can do... I just got an idea. Alright. I can pull sort of a trick I used to do with some designs in the past. Let's do a very... Let's make it a very, very tall, sort of menacing... You remember, I've done this... Hold on, I wonder if I can show that. I wonder if I could even find the damn thing. I'll work on that in a second. I'll have it searching my computer for this. But you remember, let's see... What's a good example? I don't have a really good example offhand. Crap. Okay, but just very, very old drawing. In this case, an old Korean emissary drawing. It's a robot design. But sort of like that, where it's just a very big, kind of big lug. And a big, long cape thing. Oh, a good example might be the Batman the Animated Series final season. I think final season was season 4, where they reintroduced the Scarecrow, voiced by the dude. I can't even. Voiced by the dude that does all the Star Trek voices, and he's been in pretty much everything. But that was my favorite version of the Scarecrow, even though he's only in like one thing. He's very sinister. I really like that portrayal of him. It's the only one that I really have ever liked. But he's sort of like that. He's a big guy with these big wide shoulders, and he goes way, like, he's very, very tall. Really like his design. Even though they had to, the biggest problem with Scarecrow is they keep trying to make him a Scarecrow because of his name. With that one, they kind of just abandoned that, and he's like a really big guy inside of a, a trench coat with a hat. Let's see. Where's... I can't even think of my own character's name right now, because I'm thinking of Scarecrow. I'm not gonna go too much over this real fast. Hold on. Batman Season 4. I want to show you guys this real fast. Yeah, there he is. He's not quite as I remember exactly. But it looks a lot like... Yeah. See how he's much, much taller. He looks like Aiton is who I'm thinking of. I got myself distracted. But I always like that kind of design where it's a really big dude that... You can see the geometry of his shape. Where it's more triangular, leading down. It kind of furrows to the bottom there. I really like that. It's really nice. Aiton, one of my characters, sort of looks like that. He's changed a bit over time, though. So it's going to be something kind of like that. It has that same sort of geometry. So I can sort of make it like that, where it's a much... Like, I know Gengar's very short, and Gardevoir is also very short. All Pokemon are, like, actually, like, 2 fucking feet tall for some reason. But that's probably the best way of going about this. So let's just focus on some basic shapes right now. This is not going to be what it looks like in the final. But again, sometimes it's okay to cheat a little bit whenever you're doing primaries, because it gives you ideas. Yeah, okay. I can kind of see where this can go. It's going to take quite a long time of doing primary over primary, though. Like I said, this is going to be the most difficult one by far. So you're probably going to see a big skip ahead where I do probably just several of these. It's going to be primary after primary after primary. And I'm not sure how many it's going to take, but I'll eventually work out something that looks sort of like that. I don't want it to just be this kind of tiny one in a dress. I mean, this one kind of looks cute, so I don't mind that too much. But I do want it to look like its own thing, and I think the way to go will probably be to stretch it out a little bit, so that it does look big, like Gengar, but it also looks very tall and perhaps a little bit regal looking, sort of like Gardevoir is. So this one's not going to be a straight up just one per one, just draw this line, then draw this line, sort of like the other ones have been. It'll require a little bit of interpretation, but I don't want to be too aggressive to the point that it completely detaches and looks like something completely different. Okay, so I'm going to stop it here. And I did this one just for the sake of you guys seeing how I'm thinking whenever I'm doing these. I understand this one's probably not going to be the most entertaining, but it's vital for you to understand that whenever you're doing these things, sometimes it's not always going to be for the sake of entertainment. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of, not necessarily just dexterous skill and being able to draw the thing, but also just being able to sit there and think and reason and plan and come up with something that actually will make sense in the long term. Okay, so let's stop it here, and then we'll flash ahead, and I'll continue doing this primary on Picardo. Probably I'll stream it there. Alright, I will see you guys in a bit. Take it away, the me that's actually being entertaining. That's a tall order. Good luck with that idea. Oh, it's always a good sign for me. I always start these without any planning whatsoever. Like I might take like a second to think, what should I talk about? And then I'll go, I'll just think of something. And then I just go about my business and think about drawing more boobs in the future. Alright. But this is where I start doing everything on Picardo, so if you see a bunch of pausing or I'm just... I'm laughing at the thing I'm drawing here. But where I kind of just stop and I'm farting around doing something, it's probably because I'm doing something with chat. This is the, I guess, the moo phase of the planning, where I kept trying to do this and pull this off, but it kept coming across to me as like a really overweight, extremely tall Gengar. It wasn't really working quite the way that I would hope that it would work. And I sort of briefly had that idea of maybe I can make it like a ghost or something, where it's sort of just kind of floating, hovering off the air and whatnot. I went through a lot of iterations, just trying desperately to figure something out, and nothing really stuck for a while. Of course, I say all this, but you've already seen the title card, so you already have a very loose idea of what it looks like. And I'm sure that a good majority of you are the kind of people that will just skip to the end. Like, you don't even hear this part. You skip to the end, like, oh, I see, I know what it is now. I don't know. I'm gonna. Why you people do that, I don't know. Anyways, at this point, everything starts to come together, though. Because I start thinking about, well, how the hell am I supposed to resolve this? How am I supposed to unify these two things? And then I start to realize, what if I basically take Gardevoir's form, but I just make it a lot thicker looking, and I use her dress, and instead of trying to make it really furry and oh, it's so beautiful, oh, so elegant, it's like a sea of sensuality or anything like that. Instead of doing that, what if I actually use the dress to sort of accentuate the overall sort of shape that I've been going for? Like, Gengar's supposed to be very, very round. I can't really make her straight up just very, very round without just turning her into a big blob or anything like that. So here I strike upon the idea of, well, maybe I'll just furl out the dress so that it ends up creating sort of this round shape. But at the same time, have it so that it's not too overly aggressive. Now, at this point, one of the problems I kind of run into is that it ends up sort of looking a little bit too much like her. So I do backtracking across this several times. And this is the part where I really like working on a stream, since we're just watching movies or whatever, that I could just sit here and kind of goof around. And to me, it's always good to get a drawing done and everything. But to me, a lot of the fun of actually doing the drawing is just experimenting and trying new things. Like here, I'm just trying to figure out how am I supposed to make the ears work, because I was playing with the idea of getting rid of the hair entirely, but I didn't really like the idea. So, like, one or two people said they liked the idea of doing this, but I ended up figuring out, well, I could use, like, the little, what do you call those? Like, the hair, it comes across from, like, the back and wraps around to the sides of the face. I can think of a lot of cartoon characters that have that deal, where there's these little bitty sort of spikes, and even anime they do it, where they have these little bitty hair spikes that wrap around to like their cheeks. And I noticed therefore, as far as designing a character goes, no one in real life really has things like that. Um, but I did that to try to round off her design even further to make sure that it still looked kind of feminine and very tall and elegant, like Gardevoir, or whatever the hell its name is supposed to be pronounced as. But at the same time, kind of rounded out to the point where it looks a bit more like Gengar. So yeah, lots of problem solving in this. And the problem solving part of it, I did say that it can be fun. It can be really, really frustrating too, though. Because you just keep working on it over and over again, and sometimes you'll keep making the same mistakes, and that will get you frustrated because I just keep doing this. It's not working. Why am I even doing this? And you can't really figure out a way around it. And you might say to yourself, well, I just need to try something else. I'll just keep trying something else until it actually works out the way it's supposed to. And you try something else, and then you find yourself doing the same thing that you were doing in the first place. Or you find yourself creating new problems that didn't need to exist. But when you finally do hit upon that thing that actually does work, and you have this epiphany of, oh, why didn't I see that in the beginning? Like, with this one, I started out with a little bitty dumpy sort of imp kind of look, and then I went on to trying to make the Moo Moo character because I had that idea of, well, maybe it'll turn out like the Scarecrow or something, like I was talking about. And that wasn't really working either, because there just was not enough realism to the design to make that work. Plus, he had to take a little bit too many liberties with it. But finally, whenever I hit upon this, suddenly everything clicked. It's like, I like this now. For reasons, right? Okay, so binary line stage. We're finally out of the primary stages. Takes me a while to render all this out and get everything the way it should be. I think over the... Well, from the beginning of this time lapse, I think in total this whole drawing took about 3 hours or so, in terms of planning and then rendering everything out and whatnot. Line stage probably doesn't take that long. It's not that bad. But out of all of them, because I'm having to be so precise with my line work, I would say that, yeah, probably the line work is probably the thing that takes the most time. So if you find yourself kind of laboring over that, don't worry about it too much. Especially if you're working the way that I am, where you're working with this binary and everything needs to be very clean and very precise so that you can wand things off later on so that you can very quickly color them. Something like that. Don't worry about it too much. Just, do what feels right to you. Alright. I noticed some people in the comments were mentioning that with my idea of making like Pokemon breeds and things like that, that the new one, and I already knew this whenever I was doing the video, of course, but they released the, what do they call them? Alola forms, not Aloha. No. But Alola. That's much different. But they're making those, and they're just the same thing as the ordinary ones, except they are a different color. Like usually they're like white or they're silver or something like that. Although I think in the case of Raichu, it's like really, I get the impression that they're taking old designs that they felt this could have been better. Like that's what they're actually doing. They're like taking the Meowth design, for example, and going, you know what, we got pretty close, but it would look a lot better if it looked something like this. And then they, have this sort of more, it's slightly cattier looking. The color palette that they're using is a little bit more subdued, a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, things like that. So, it's a far cry from what I was talking about there being different kinds of breeds and having more options with such things and whatnot. But, it's a step forward, at least, sort of. But the problem there is that the way that they're handling it, since it's not sort of generated, which is kind of the key to it, but since it's not generated, then it's basically just another Pokemon you have to catch. Because now you have to catch the normal version, and you also have to catch this new one. It's sort of like having the shiny problem all over again. Where, sure, it's the same exact Pokemon, but now it's just another color that you need to have. And I guess the one good thing about it, though, is, as far as I know anyways, they are the same thing statistically, unlike the shiny. The shinies originally, it seems like they were guaranteed to have perfect stats, which just created a very obvious problem of, well, now I need to make sure that I need to get a shiny because it's going to be the definitive perfect one every single time. So, yeah, they fixed that pretty damn fast. But with these, I guess it's just a case of, well, this one makes my penis rock hard, or whatever your thing is, or it reminds me of my dead grandmother, or whatever your personal reasons are. So you can just say, I like the silver Meowth better than the old one or something, and just pick it that way. So that at least is a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, it's a step that they took 10, 15 years too late. So, a little late to the party, guys. A little late to the party on that one. I do like the idea of... I really wish there was like a fan-modded game or something, where what I was talking about actually was sort of reality in the sense of, breeding the Pokemon so that they have specific appearances and whatnot. But can't have everything, Pokemon, I've gone over before, Pokemon has lots of stupid things in their games, and there's nothing really to be done about it. I briefly played Yokai Watch, and I could tell what they were trying to do. I'm going into the idea of other game series. I could tell what they were trying to do. The idea of you have all these little monster friends. How come you aren't using them all at the same time? Wouldn't you? Pokemon has this weird thing where they explain most of these things away by saying that the whole world is so obsessed with Pokemon that everyone has this honor code associated with it, and this is just how it does. How it's done, and if you are um, like even fighting Team Rocket or whatever, and it's the end of the world. Oh, they're going to kill everyone. They're going to take all of our rats or whatever. Then you still use one at a time because that's just how it's done. Unless, of course, they use multiple ones. Then it's okay for you to use two multiple ones. It's kind of stupid, but Yokai Watch, I could tell, was kind of orienting around this idea of, well, let's be a little bit different. Let's make it more of a team-oriented thing. Combat's terrible, though. Apparently they sort of improved it in the next ones, but Yokai Watch 1, it's just not a very fun game. The designs aren't quite as good as Pokemon designs in most cases. I think their most famous ones are the same cat yokai. Like there's this one cat one, I can't remember what its name is. Colored Stage, yay. And there's several variations of one. There's like a blue one and a red one, and but that's not a good sign. And it seems like most of their designs are like at least in the first one. Apparently the next few series they had ones that were like based in other areas of the world, right? But most of the ones in one are just Japanese actual yokai, like stereotypes of existing Japanese myths that mean absolutely nothing to anyone outside of that region. Here I'm mixing my colors, making sure I figure out what to do here. This is actually, I'm going to be picking this thing that looks like green. This is actually a very low saturation blue, what I'm actually doing. One of those weird things about how color works. Sometimes you can lower the saturation on something and get something that, even though if you sample it, you'll find out, oh, this is actually, a yellow rather than a green. Green does it a lot for some reason with the human eye. Like in this case, this looks sort of green, but it's actually low saturation blue. You can use a low saturation yellow to make something look sort of green. It's really, really weird. Anyways. But yeah, Yokai Watch, not very good. Because you spend a lot of time rotating through your little guys, just kind of, you're not really fighting. You're sort of just acting like a basketball manager. Like I used to play basketball back in the day, and it it's a very different kind of skill than actually playing the game. Like if you're in the game, you're enjoying it by like I used to be the high jumper. I would have a lot of fun trying to find an angle or go baseline or whatever, and try to make sure that I could get to the rim. That's how I like to play as a driver. But whenever I was actually on the sidelines and I didn't really have a choice in the matter, I was often sort of helping our coach. He was not very experienced or anything. This is a different story entirely. But having to manage your team and say, who's winded, who needs to come out, even though they say that they don't need to come out. Oh, they're putting this other guy in, and his skill set is this, so I need to make sure that we have this guy off our bench that's good at maybe not necessarily scoring or guarding the basket, but he's good at denying passing lanes and things like that. It's a very different thing. In Yokai Watch, you're basically playing as the manager. You're not actually doing any of the fighting. You're just sort of saying, all right, who's tired? You need to come out. Here's some food for you. And it's just not very satisfying in that way. And I guess Digimon tried to solve that in a different way, where in some of the series anyways, you end up becoming the Digimon, which is really strange. I don't know, man. There's been several game series that try to replicate sort of what Pokemon is doing, but it seems like there has never been a game series that actually does it 100% correct. And oddly enough, even though Pokemon and Game Freak, they have tons of problems with their design, they still are probably the closest that any game series has actually come to actually getting it right. Because the basic elements of what makes it fun are there. They're just not balanced correctly. They're focusing on the wrong things, but the core does exist. It kind of reminds me of Animal Crossing in a way. I kind of have a similar problem with Animal Crossing. I'll probably never do an art gripe of Animal Crossing in any way, but well, I say that, but watch me draw Isabelle at some point. But one of the problems I have with Animal Crossing is I kind of got the impression before I think I played one game of it ever. I emulated a couple of versions briefly just to kind of see what the hell it even was. But I got the impression before I even played one of the games that it was some sort of like The Sims or something, where most of the game is interacting with the other villagers and forming relationships with them, like making friends and yeah, just doing that sort of thing. And then once I actually got into the game, I realized that all the characters are extremely paper thin. They repeat their dialogue like very quickly. They have almost nothing going on. It's a very grind intensive game where you're supposed to be grinding out things to buy for the sake of nothing other than just personal objectives. And you don't really interact with the villagers in any real meaningful way. Like, there's all sorts of things about that series also that kind of have that same kind of general problem, where everything is just a little bit off. Because I would think that the value of a game like that would be that you're creating these little bitty cute little relationships. And sure, you are accessorizing your house or whatever, but there's a lot more to it than that. So Pokemon is kind of the same thing, I guess, in the sense that it does some things right, but it does a lot of things wrong at the same time. Maybe that's a good thing, though. Maybe it's a healthy thing to see someone doing one thing, say, I like that, but here's all the things that I have with it that are wrong. I think that's actually quite healthy. It's kind of a big component of my personality, too, is I see a lot of things that I don't quite like in other things, including myself. Like, I'll draw something and then be critical of it, but that only leads to more experiences and rounding yourself out a little bit better. And a lot of really great things like movies and novels and video games come out because someone plays something else, they really like it, but they think, I like this element of it, but I don't like the way that they handled it. So, whenever you're doing your drawing, whatever it is that you're doing in life exactly, I guess that's a good life experience to have, where you actually figure out, I like this, but it could be done a lot differently. And you decide, I'll do it myself. That's a good thing to do. Okay, but anyways. Finally done with old Genevar here. It took us a while to figure out the name of that one. But Genevar, I like that one. There was a couple more that were nice, but I like that one. It took a while to actually figure out what the color scheme would be, because it's very difficult to combine some of these, especially Gardevoir, because she has that very strong green, and green does not blend well or match well with pretty much anything, unless you're going for very garish color schemes. I guess it kind of matches best with blue, which is why this intermediate between purple is a low saturation blue actually did kind of end up working. The fact that I was able to pair it with this sort of more low saturation near blue purple color helped it quite a lot. Whenever you're combining colors, it can be quite easy to create something that actually ends up being very binary in its color palette, where everything is green or everything is red or whatever it happens to be. But I think this one turned out pretty well. I think the strongest element of this is going to be the shape. It does, to me, look like an actual fusion of Gengar and Gardevoir. Turned out pretty well, I would say. I'm sure that some of you are whining about it looking too much like one or the other, but you guys do that with every single thing. And as I've said in previous videos, that's a good sign that you probably did it correctly whenever you have people saying 50-50, it looks too much like this one or it looks too much like the other one. The thing that you definitely want to avoid is whenever people say 100% it looks too much like one of them. So, if you get a mixed reception, that's also a good thing, as long as people are talking about it. Marketing 101. Marketing 101. All right. So that's it for these three, the three basic ones. The final video is going to be slamming all of these things together. Slamming old Genevar here together with Arcanor and Genine, or Genine, or whatever you want to call them. So this is going to be difficult, but it will also be maybe fun? Who can say, really? Alright. So look forward to that. That will be the finale. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for this most boring of the three videos, I'm sure, but also somehow the most sexual. Despite the fact that the last one was supposed to be the pretty waifu one, this one's far more alluring, don't you think? Yes. Makes you uncomfortable? Yes, good, good. That's exactly what I want. Alright, so off we go to the fourth version, final version. Take it away, future me, if you're watching this on the playlist. If not, fuck you. Yes. Alright. Happy life lessons, everyone. Goodbye.